Warning: the following podcast, which contains strong language and mature content, is unsuitable for children or for the faint of heart. The subject matter discussed will be frightening and graphic in nature. Listener discretion is advised.
When you wanna hear about the paranormal, you get the Spooked Girls. True crime that makes you hypothermal. With the three Spooked Girls, stabby snippets will give you dreams. Tara and Jessica will make you along with the Spooked Girls. Bring on the slaughter. We on that haunted ground. Spooked Girls. The three Spooked Girls.
Hey Spooksters, and welcome back to another episode here on Three Spooked Girls. My name is Tara, and as always, I'm here with my girlfriend Jessica.
Hello.
Hello. And today is the final episode of Devil in the Family, the Fall of Ruby Franke. If you haven't listened to the other two episodes, you're going to want to. My flabbers were gasted the whole fucking time.
It's very true. You were very flabbergasted.
I mean, it's crazy. And then before I sat down to watch and do my notes and stuff for the third one, I was like, oh, even though I know what happened, I want to watch the second one. So I watched it, and it's just like, it's still just as shocking and crazy and just like, what the fuck when you're watching it. It doesn't matter that you know what happens. It's just crazy.
Did my retelling of Jody being possessed live up to its expectations?
Yes, spot fucking on. I'm like, what in the Blair Witch is happening right now? This is so stupid. And then the whole like about whatever the fuck she whispered, where she was like, I want her, or she's mine, or whatever that was.
I own her.
Yes, that was just like, oh my God, I'm sorry. Her performance, because that's what it is. Bitch was not fucking possessed. Her performance was just so very low budget horror movie for sure. So yes, you did it. If y'all just only listen to our recaps and don't watch these documentaries, Jess gave it all the justice, like to a T.
Yay.
So bad.
That's why I was like, Tara, you need to come into this unbiased.
Yeah. Need to come into this blind for sure. But before we get into episode 3, which is titled Truth, if you are new here, hello, welcome. Thank you for checking out the show. Returning Spooksters, welcome back. And if you are not hanging out with us on social media, go follow us. We are on all the places. Our handle is at 3 Spooked Girls. We are pushing our Instagram, so definitely go follow us there if you are not. And also our YouTube channel. I mean, go follow us on all the places. You know, do it. If you are into Facebook groups, we also have that, of course. That's 3 Spooked Girls Official. And we are inching towards the end of July. I can't remember exactly the date this comes out, but I'm pretty sure we're still in July when this will release. Secret Satan is coming, and Jess is working on stuff on the back end. She has the form ready. That'll be dropping next month soon, so it'll be coming soon. So if you want all those details, of course, closer to time, we will talk about it, but the form will live there. You have to be in the Facebook group. No exceptions. This is just for our sanity, and also just because of the scale that this exchange has grown to, which I fucking love, but you got to be in the Facebook group. Sorry, if you're not and you don't want to be in the Facebook group, hard no, that's our boundary, but we would love to have you. If you are not listening to Social Science Society, you can check out our feed drop episode, which was 2 episodes ago. You can check that out. We posted our summer slasher with the Friday the 13th theme and all of that good stuff, and trauma dumped some summer camp stories. It was great. Loved it. Honestly, we loved that episode so much that we were like, we have to share it with everyone just in case y'all haven't checked out Social Science Society. So definitely check it out. We do have one other episode for July. That'll be another summer slasher. And then I believe there's an extra week in this month. So you might be getting a Hot Topics That show is bi-weekly, so stay tuned for that. I'm pretty sure if I remember right. But speaking of summer slashers, if you like to read, we do have our book club. That is Spookster Literary Society in the Bookclubs app. All of the stuff we do mention in the beginning of the episode is in our link tree that is in the show notes for you. So definitely check it out if you want to read with us. And we do virtual meetings. We have discussion threads, all that kind of fun stuff. And if you would like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/3spookedgirls. For as little as $1, you get one bonus episode a month. This month will be another installment of Jess's weird state laws and if they're true or not true. We did this in May and it was a lot of fun. And we have so much back content there. I think we launched our Patreon back in like 2019. So all the content, all kinds of content. And 5 and up, you guys get our ad-free episodes and also get it the day before. So if that interests you, you can support your ghouls and you can get that and a ton more content on top of that. So lots of good stuff. And when you guys hear this, we'll have already wrapped up our season 2 recap of Gypsy Rose Life After Lockup. Super exciting. It's a lot of fun. We like to do extra little series for you guys over there when we have the bandwidth and the time. And Gypsy just became like a built-in one after season 1 because we had so much fun. So if there's ever a season 3, it will come.
I mean, if they don't do a season 3, I'm going to be really sad.
Yeah, honestly, just not even thinking about like taking her popularity out of it, just the story arc itself. It would just make sense to at least do one more season because we've seen her getting out of prison that first time. Then we saw the aftermath of that once she, left, went with Ken, blah, blah, blah. And then it would kind of make sense to end or whatever this series with like what life was like because it ended with Aurora being born and whatnot and like just like barely being a newborn. So I feel like storytelling wise, it would make sense to do one more season for like essentially Aurora's first year of life. And then it's like, well, then after that, you can kind of go either way with
right.
If there's going to be more because if there's good ratings or if there's not, then, there's that.
It would also be good to see her like the arc of her getting out of prison, living on parole, and then the life after parole.
Oh, yeah, you're not wrong.
In real time, Gypsy is off parole. She got off parole at the end of last month. And it would be good to see her kind of like, I hope, thrive, like be able to do things that like, she talks about like they want to travel, they want to do that kind of stuff. It would be great to see that kind of come true for her in a real way. And, I think Gypsy has done a really good job of like hiding her. She's made it very apparent that she's not making Aurora available to the public. So I think that's been good. So for those of you out there who are like, well, what about that? I think that the story should be told of her navigating her true freedom, being able to like get out there and like she's been able to go to drinks with friends finally and be able to like, go to a bar. Like she was in her 30s and she wasn't allowed to go to a bar, which every person should feel the right to be able to go to someplace like that. And there's things that she couldn't do on parole. And so now that she's free, she can go do things and live life and experience a lot of things that she wasn't able to. I mean, really ever.
Yeah, for sure. So if that interests you, definitely check it out. But with that, we're going to go ahead and dive on into this last episode. And I am sure I will mention this again once we get to that certain part. But I do want to say up front, y'all know how many, especially you guys who have been here the whole time, you know how much dark shit, how many documentaries we've watched, how many hours of research we've done, what kind of cases we've done. I will be real. I cried during this episode and I have not cried. I don't cry from TV, movies, nothing. Sometimes I do. Definitely did with Sinners, but
I was just about to say, bitch cried at Sinners.
I know I cried at Sinners, but anyway, that's because I have a heart. Leave me alone. Anyway,
it's okay. I was also crying. Tara and I were sitting next to each other in the theater pretending like we couldn't see each other cry. We're like, she doesn't see me crying right now. It's fine. Guys, Sinners is out on HBO Max. So if you have HBO Max and you haven't watched Sinners, what are you doing with your life?
Literally watch it. So fucking good. Still my favorite new release of this year. Anyway, just buckle up. This is a tough episode and it definitely did pull on my heart so much. Okay. Episode 3, like I said in the intro, is titled Truth. We open up with the police arriving to Jody's home and telling her to step out, like kind of how the last episode ended, right? And she responds, no, I have a lawyer. And it was so funny to me because the cop literally says, that's nice. Step out of the house, and fucking grabs her, like, not crazy, but like grabs her wrist to pull her out of the house. And I'm just like, yes, get this bitch, get her.
I need to make a comment about how Jody answered the door. I have never in my life, like, there have been, like, I will tell this really funny story because I think like some jokes in this will make it better. Tara and I were getting ready to do a video, and I was putting on my makeup, and someone knocked on the door, and it turned out to be 2 police officers. And I had to be like, hold on a second, because I was like in a towel. And I'd be like, I'm in a towel, hold on. So I put clothes on and I opened the door, and I had started to put my makeup on, but I had only done one eye of concealer, and the other one just had like, you know, blocking of concealer. And I'm literally talking to 2 police officers looking fucking crazy. And they're like, did anyone from this address call 911? And I was like, nope. And they're like, well, we had a call from here. And I was like, well, I didn't call 911. Let me open my phone. Because, you know, what if you accidentally did? And I was like, no, see. And they showed the call log. And I was like, well, could be also upstairs because like we have vertical. And they were like, yeah, they're like, maybe. But it turned out that someone had called. Like, we found out that somebody called 911, but like, like literally these cops, there was a man and a woman, and they were like straight faced. I literally have one eye beaten in, like, you know, like if you don't know makeup terms, beaten means like I've like blended it into my skin, and just the other eye just like undone. And I'm just like, hello, how are you? I looked fucking crazy. But
no, but that's like, honestly, I'm sure the second they saw you, they're like, oh yeah, it obviously was not her.
Wasn't her. I mean, they were very persistent, and they're like, are you sure? Is there anyone else here? I was like, you can come in and check. Like, I was told, because like I had nothing to hide. Like, I'm the only, it was like me and my cats. They were like, okay, we're good. But my comment about Jody is like, she answers the door on the phone with her lawyer. And I'm like, why would you be doing that?
Why would you be ready like that? Yeah.
Why would you be ready? You know what's coming, because I'm sorry, if the police were pounding on my door, like obviously I was like, oh, I am complying. Also did not realize what I looked like until I walked back and looked at myself in the mirror and then giggled really, really hard. But the fact that like Jody was like on the phone with like, so she had called, gotten a hold of her lawyer, and then approached the door. My mind was blown. So,
and then it was so funny because yeah, it was so funny because she was like starting to freak out when they pulled her, and she's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then she's like, how can you even go into the house? And I just love that they're like, nope, fuck you, bitch. Because they're like, is anybody else here? Like, and then they're going inside. And then we'll get more into that, like how that played out in a moment. So after that, of course, in true doc form, we transition over to Kevin. And the interviewer says that they want to talk about what Ruby and Jody did to the kids after he moved out. And he just got his normal, like, forlorn kind of like look and shakes his head, not like shaking his head to say no, but just to be like, I can't believe this happened. And I'm like, homie, what do you mean you can't believe this happened? Whatever. So we go back to the footage of Ruby in her house. This is obviously after the older kids have left and Kevin's left, all of that. And she rings this bell to summon the little kids down. And this is obviously something that's routine because they come down in a single file line, and all of them have like a blanket over them, like when you wrap a blanket around you and whatnot, and they all go sit down on the couches. And you can tell it's just running like essentially like a prison camp at this point. They're just the way they are they're acting. Because keep in mind, some of these kids are so little, right? The youngest was like 4 or 5, I think.
She was 10 at the time.
10, my bad. Okay. But anyway, young where it's like, a kid that age would not just like know to be that complicit, basically, without there being a history of it. And one of the neighbors said that this is when they all started to really worry. Then because we start seeing clips of these different videos of Ruby. One, she's in there. She is saying, quote, what I'm suggesting is that your woke child is a walking zombie and that you have an opportunity to wake the zombie up. And then we get a string of comments. And I also have a thought about this for that specific verbiage I want to point out. So the comments, they start popping up, showing us, it says like, poor kids, man, they're giving me culty vibes. I feel terrible for the children. How has it come to this? Very disturbing. Now, the thing that stuck out to me was the word zombie, because if you guys remember, Chad and Lori Daybell also were claiming those children were zombies. And those are both like, the cult extensions of the LDS church is where both of these people have came from. So it's like, this is obviously still an ongoing theme because the Lori Vallow case was in 2019. And then now here we are. It was like, what, 2022, 2023 type of time frame with that. So it's just like, that's really fucking terrifying. And then we get a video of Jody that says, quote, you have hurt, you have fear, you have resentment, you have all of these feelings of being entitled, aka Jody and Ruby's favorite word. You may have these perceptions inside of you and you may not even know you have them, but you do, end quote. And then there's a video of Ruby making her younger children watch that video, and she tells one of the younger girls, oh, you need to scoot up. I need to be able to see your face. Like, you need to get into the frame. And, you know, because this is her norm, this has been her like whole life, you know, she's moving, she's going into the frame, like, you know, whatever. But it's like, it's just showing more of like, obviously Ruby's curating so much of her fucking life. It's just ew. It's just another ew moment to add to the fucking laundry list we have going.
It was weird because it was like, it didn't feel like a family sitting around and watching a video. It very much felt like she had set her camera up and she put girl 1, girl 2, girl 3, and just kind of like set them there. And then it didn't feel genuine. Ruby's whole thing is like, I need to show the perfect kids because I need people to buy in what I'm selling.
100%. And the neighbors go on. I didn't bother writing like which neighbor which, because really it doesn't matter. But it's all it's the couples that we've seen through this whole thing. So the neighbors go on to say that, you know, these were once very bubbly children and now they're so withdrawn and they almost seem like there's no joy at all, which given what we find out, no wonder they had no joy, sadly. And one of the neighbors saw Ruby in the front yard, so he decided to ask why Chad and Kevin weren't there. Her response to him was, quote, every marriage should have a separation. It could be a year. It could be 5 years, end quote. And they knew something was wrong, but obviously they didn't know what, right? Because, you know, we all get this like gut feeling intuition. We know when shit's off, especially because it's like the husband's gone, the older kids are gone, like the whole thing. Again, this is a Mormon conservative area where they give a crap so much about this image of perfection that it's obviously a huge red flag if husband gets kicked out. Just, it's not going to be willy-nilly. It's going to be a serious thing.
And also all of these people have kids that are like these children's age. And so they're interacting with these kids regularly. And I don't think there can be like I think it's really hard to define the switch. Like Tara is saying, like these kids went from like if you watch the clips from their previous, like when they were doing 8 Passengers and they were bubbly and laughing and blah, blah, blah. And then now they're literally like Tara mentioned, it was like a prison camp. They were like little military, like cadets, like just walk in a straight line, do as I say, very low energy. It's a lot. It's a lot different. And so imagine being a neighbor and being like, what do we do?
Right, exactly. And they had said too, they hope that Kevin would come back or at least get the kids out of there. They didn't know any details, of course, but they knew there was something dangerous going on with those kids. And the next thing the interviewer wants to talk with Kevin about is the separation with no contact. So he talks about how he was terrified that he was going to lose his marriage and that Ruby was going to ask for a divorce. And he said that at this point, he was 1,000% compliant because he didn't want that. And he straight up says, quote, he was going to support her over all of his children, period. And he knew the key to, quote, fixing this was that he had to convince Jody, not convince his own wife, but of course, convince her lesbian lover that allegedly, quote, quote, that he was ready to go back to Ruby. And it was just so funny because like I put in my note, because like obviously when we write our notes, we like reflect on what we're watching too at the same time. And I wrote, given the lesbian love of it all, we knew this wasn't going to happen. Sorry, I had to make a joke about it.
I mean, yeah. But I mean, I think also Kevin was like in denial. He was like my wife, because I really think Kevin was lying in bed every night, probably hearing what was happening down the hall. And is just like, that's not what's happening. Like, I think he was in straight up fucking denial. Like, of course he had to go no contact with his kids because like, what if Jody and Ruby started being affectionate in front of their children? They were going to tell their dad. So he had to be gone. It's probably why Jody was like, he's got to go. Because like, you know that she's the fucking mastermind of Kevin being gone. And I don't like Ruby and Jody.
Here's the thing. That alone, your point actually like so valid. And like, I wasn't even thinking of that. What I was thinking of with this is that they made sure there was no contact because they couldn't risk having those kids mention what they were going through, what kind of abuse they were going through. Like, and that's the thing. Even if these kids didn't realize it was abuse, because of what we learned later, they could be like, oh, this is what, I had a hard day because I'll just go ahead and it's like a little bit of spoiler, but not because mom made me go jump on the trampoline all day in the hot sun in the middle of the fucking desert. And then obviously it doesn't matter how much denial you're in at that point, that's not okay. So like they knew what they were doing was wrong. And they were doing the steps they could to make sure they weren't going to get caught or stay under the radar for as long as possible.
Yes, true. I do think Kevin, like he said, he was going to be compliant. And I think they knew that.
It's still a risk, though. So that's what I'm saying. Like, because it was intentional on the women's side.
Right. If the kids got hurt. Oh, of course. If the kids got hurt, like they did. But like let's say, you brought up the trampoline thing. What if he fell and broke his ankle and he has a relationship with his dad? That's going to be pretty hard to, because I think Kevin, like part of me feels like Kevin is so delusional. If that boy had been like, mom made me jump on the trampoline in the hot sun all day, Kevin might be, well, what did you deserve it? If Ruby was like, oh, he talked back, so this was his punishment, that he would be like, okay. I think it would take his kid being like really fucking hurt, like really, really hurt for him to snap. Because ultimately, I mean, granted, he had no contact, but like, yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And he also talks about how, of course, it was radio silence from everyone besides the men's group. And he said this turned him into a hermit, which is totally understandable because I think you're right. I really do think he was sitting there reflecting every fucking night being like, what can I do better to prove that I am worthy? Like I may not believe him on a lot of things, but I do believe him on that. I really do.
Oh yeah. Cause like who runs the men's group is Jody. Because like for a while I was like, well, he has no contact. How would Ruby know he's working so hard? And it's the men's group is that if he goes and he's diligent and he tells them like, I'm doing this, like I haven't watched porn in X amount of time. I have just been reading my Bible, working and focusing on my relationship with God and purifying myself. Because, that's the kind of shit he was probably saying. And then I have a feeling like Ruby and Jody would just giggle about it later. I think Jody looked at Kevin and went, you're a sucker.
Oh, for sure. And also, too, I guarantee at least sometimes Ruby was probably sitting in on it because you'll notice if you watch this, Jody's camera is never on, just 100%. The men. So, you never know. So Chad has also left the home, as we have said. He moved into a place right next to the university. He wasn't like no contact or anything. He was actually still having his meetings or his sessions with Jody every week. He said that at this point, Jody had control over him because he trusted and he loved her and he wanted to make sure her and Ruby were proud. And he wanted to show like, look, I am complying. I am changing. I am becoming a better young man, all of that. So his side of it's a little different versus Sherry and Kevin during all of this. Of course, he wasn't there. He wasn't around the kids. Like he wasn't seeing any of this, but he still had this like minimal regular contact. So why would he think anything nefarious is happening, right?
Right, because I could see that Jody would be like, oh, everything's great. Your mom's great. The kids are great. You're doing so good. I'm telling your mom about how, like, you can just kind of tell that was probably what he was doing. And Chad was just like, I want to make, you're right. Like, I want to make them proud. So I'm going to be this like man of God and I'm going to like get my stuff under control. But it's probably a lot harder when you have a lot of urges that you don't know how to direct into a positive way. All they tell you in churches is like, don't give in to sin. I remember like you hear a lot of times in youth group, when you get those urges, just start praying. And I'm like, I don't know that you can pray away a boner. Like, I don't think that's how that works. Especially if it's especially if you're at that point in your life where like you don't have control over it. Like there's ages for boys where it's like, stuff just happens. And imagine being like, dear Jesus, please take away my boner. And it like not go down because you're just having hormones. And then you feel like the biggest piece of shit because you had a boner for 20 minutes,
So we go over to Sherry and she tells us that she texted Kevin about a month after leaving and says that he hearted it and then a minute later came back and unhearted it. So then she followed up and sent him another text and she said she told him he needs to pull his head out of his ass and come back, and realize what's going on. And from there, he blocked her. The interviewer asked Kevin why he didn't say anything. And Kevin's like, if I dwell on that question, it eats me alive. And I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of glad. Good. Because at the end of the day, I don't care what Kool-Aid, what brainwashing, whatever. Maybe this is me being naive, but I'm like, at the end of the day, that's your fucking kids. And you knew at the very least Ruby's verbally abusive. You should have been there to protect your children. I don't care if you're the mom, dad, non-binary parent, whatever. When you're a parent, that is your number one job with your kids, is to protect them. So you fucking failed, my guy. I don't care. I don't care if that's harsh. He fucking failed those children.
Oh, 1,000%. And I don't think anyone should sugarcoat it for him and be like, you were just brainwashed. Because a lot of people will come out and be like, Kevin was brainwashed. Yeah, he was brainwashed, but he also left and at no point questioned it. Like, in that year of reflection, you're telling me not one time you thought, is this the right choice for my children? No, you told us at the beginning of your interviews for this episode that you had put Ruby first. You made a conscious choice to pick your wife over the well-being of your kids. And if that's the fucking case, I mean, if that's the case, like, you're a bad parent. Mm-hmm. You don't get a pass because you were just not there. The moment you packed your shit up and left your family and went no contact, you're a piece of shit. There's no explanation for it. Think about all the kids whose parents have done that. They just like up and left. There's trauma with it. Even if, let's say, nothing bad happened after like the situation that happened didn't happen, those kids would still have trauma from Kevin leaving.
100%. Then we pan over back to the neighbors, and one of them talks about how uncomfortable they were getting with every new video that came out because of how harsh Ruby and Jody were, and that there was really like no coming back from this because they just kept going down this train, right? And we see a clip of Ruby saying, quote, "I love principals more than my child, and that's the truth." And of course, just like every other fucked up thing she says, she is so gung-ho and so like, yep, this is the right thing to say. Like, I'm owning it. And then they like, her and Jody kind of laugh after, and I'm like, that's even more disturbing. And then in another video, she says, quote, "Don't let the child dictate what's going on." And the comments are noticing the unhingedness of all of this. And so some of those comments were, wow, Ruby has completely gone off the rails. This next one, I screamed when it fucking popped up on the screen because it said, Ruby gonna okay, can't even read. Gonna see Ruby on a true crime podcast. And I'm like, bitch, right here. But also like, we're watching this on a documentary.
I know. When they were like, you're gonna see her on a true crime podcast, I was like, ours, multiple times.
Here, now, unfortunately.
Right?
And then another comment was like, this is insanely troubling, things like that. Honestly, I'm so glad it's just comments, but like, I'm glad people were commenting this, to be real with you. I really was. And so the neighbors talk about how they started seeing her less and less and noticed that more of her videos were being filmed in St. George, aka at Jody's house, and that Ruby's car would be gone for days, but the kids were still there. And they talk about how they would see their little faces peeping out the windows, and it would literally be like hours later and the kids were still in the same spot, just like obviously probably wondering where their mom was and just staring and waiting for her. Who knows exactly like what she said, or if that's just, you know, they just did that themselves, but it's so fucking sad. And one of the neighbors, Lisa, would text Sherry to check in, and she said that she was starting to get kind of nervous, and Lisa replied back, "I could see why." So on September 18th of 2022, Sherry makes a call to 911 for a wellness check on her siblings to the Springville police station. She tells Lisa, "Hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to call. We really need someone to check on the kids." And with the dispatcher, she's explaining everything, and they get her connected with an officer because she also explains like, because at first the dispatcher's like, "Well, have you tried reaching out to your parents to make sure everything's okay?" And she lets them know, you know, I've had no contact, et cetera, et cetera. So of course that dispatcher's like, okay, let's go ahead and get you with an officer so we can get them out there. And Lisa starts letting the neighbors know that Sherry called and asks if they can come over to by Ruby's house to give a statement on what they have been seeing, because they needed more witnesses. Because of course, with these kind of things, it's really tough. Like, police are going to make sure kids are safe and whatnot. But at the same time, they have to have actual evidence before they can actually do anything, any action, anything like that, right? And the neighborhood showed up. In the quick clip we see, there's at least like 10 or so people standing there speaking with the police. And of course, nobody would answer the door because there was no adult there. And they couldn't get a warrant because the judge wouldn't sign off on it, saying, you know, we don't really have enough evidence to give actual cause for this. So too fucking bad, essentially. And multiple neighbors tried to text Kevin about all of this going on, and he did not respond to them. He just blocked them instead of being like, let me come by, let me check on my kids. No, everything's fine. Nothing. Just block. Goodbye. Avoidance.
Which is another like tick off in my Kevin's an asshole thing, is that it wasn't like just because Ruby was having no contact, he wasn't being updated what was going on. There were people in that community who were like, Kevin, there's something really wrong happening here. The kids are being left alone for long periods of time. And Kevin knew. Kevin fucking knew. And when this all first started happening, he's tried to play like, I just didn't fucking know. But it's like, people have receipts. People are like, we would tell him what was going on and then he would just block us. And I mean, that must be a terrifying thing to be a neighbor and being like, I don't know what to do. What do you do? Like, see the kids in the window and break into the house and take the kids? Because then you could get in trouble for kidnapping. There's so many things. And you don't think like Jody, Miss I answered the door with my lawyer on the phone, isn't going to like back Ruby up with a lawyer? Of course she would.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the neighbors did literally all they could, which obviously they talked to the police when they were there. But on top of that, multiple neighbors contacted CPS about this. And unfortunately, since they didn't see any physical signs of abuse, they couldn't step in until they did. And so the case was closed, even though the caseworker admitted to Sherry that she was extremely concerned about this, but that her hands were tied. And it was just this awful thing. And it was like, I wanted to hug one of these neighbors so bad. It was Kristen. She said she wished that she had just lied and said, yes, I have seen physical proof that they are being abused. Please come. But it's like, you're trying to help these kids and you're also trying to get the truth out. But it's like, you're just an honest person. You can't beat yourself up for that. I get it. I would feel so guilty too. And it's like, hindsight's 2020, you know what I mean? But it's like, oh, you just want to hug her because you know, like all of these neighbors, everybody gave a shit so much about these kids. And we're just like, we have to save them. We have to. And good on them. They didn't give up either with that.
Very true. And I think for her, like, it did break my heart when I was watching that because she like broke into tears and she's like, I've regretted this. And it's like to kind of be like real with her. Like if you had said that there had been physical abuse and then there was no evidence of it, it would invalidate everything because Ruby could spin that to be like, people are telling them that I abuse my children because the police and like CPS would be like, there's no evidence of physical abuse, because at that point in time, I don't think there was, at least that we know of. And I understand that like that survival guilt of like, if I had just said this thing, I could have stopped this. But there's also no proof that wouldn't have just escalated Ruby, like being angrier. She doesn't know. And I think she should lay her head down. The fact that she spoke up at all is just tremendous because there were actual adults who were attached, who were blood relatives of these children who just weren't speaking up for those kids.
100%. So then we flash to 10 months later, and this is going to tie us back into the very beginning of this documentary. So the date is August 20th, 2023. This is the day that Ruby's youngest son escapes Jody's house and goes to the neighbors. It was that, in case you need that quick refresher. Also, this is the part that made me cry. But this is that whole like where he rang the doorbell and said, hey, I need 2 favors. Please take me to the police station, et cetera, right? But now we get the full clip of it. And of course, after seeing this child in the condition he's in, the man resident, he calls 911 and he says, quote, I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. He's emaciated. He's got duct tape around each ankle. He's hungry and he's thirsty. And the neighbor's wife, rightfully so, is pacing. And you can hear her say, we need the police. We need the police here now. And the man goes on to tell the dispatcher, quote, he says he just left through the porch at the neighbor's house. And then he tells them that it's Jody Hildebrand's house. And of course, like any empathetic human, this neighbor, he's crying. He's crying. I'm crying.
I was crying.
Everybody's crying. And he's trying to put into words what he's seeing because this is so horrific. We get pictures and stuff. So trigger warning on that. You do see pictures from the police. And he says this boy he's obviously been detained and he's obviously covered in wounds. So at 11:01 a.m., an officer and ambulance team responds. Sergeant Nick Tobler is one of our main people on this. He talks about how the child had plastic wrap and duct tape around his ankles and wrists, and we get evidence photos of that. And this is all thanks to Sergeant Tobler. He was the one that got his camera and took all these photos and whatnot before EMTs removed them to check on the wounds underneath. And then we also get another officer, or we get a detective, I should say, Jessica Bate. We'll see her quite a bit. She says that her first impression was just how emaciated he was. Literally, he was nothing but skin and bones, and she could see the tendons on the upper part of his ankle on the front and back where like his Achilles heel is. And she said that in her whole career, she had never seen anything like that. And the child had told her he had been tied up and handcuffed, and that also his younger sister was at the home, but they were separated. So he hadn't actually seen her for about a month or so. And he said, I could hear her, so I know she's still there, but we were never able to be around each other. And so this is why they go to Jody's house, because at this point, they have enough told to them to be like, where's this other child? Like, what else is in this house? So they go in there and then they start doing a sweep of it and pull Jody out, blah, blah, blah. And of course, she's asking if they have a warrant, and they don't, but like, they're like, not at this moment, but no, like, don't matter.
We have probable cause.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you. So they start looking everywhere, and there's a door to a room that instead of being a normal door, it's a safe door. And they're trying to get into it to check, of course, because they've swept the whole rest of the house and found nothing. But they can't get into this room. So they ask, and Jody says, quote, I don't know if I have the code or whatever it is. And the cop goes, okay, is this a panic room or what is this? So she tells him that it's a room with a toilet and a sink, but she's insisting that she's never used it and doesn't know the code. They do find the girl. She is sitting in, I think, like a closet or something. She's obviously been told to hide. Jody probably also, while getting on the phone with the lawyer, I would assume was probably like, stay in here, don't fucking make a noise, you know, whatever. And they said that at first they thought it was like a young boy. So they thought this was a different child because she had her head shaved. She's also super emaciated and really skin and bones. And they said that she wouldn't talk, she wouldn't look at them, and she just looked terrified. And this was in fact his sister, which was Ruby's youngest daughter. And Sergeant Tobler handles this so well. He just decides to sit down with her and just start talking with her and trying to comfort her while everybody else is looking through the rest of the house, right? And Sherry says she doesn't remember a lot because she had asked, like, what was your experience with this day? And not surprised, she's like, honestly, I don't remember a lot of it. It was such a blur. You know, I'm sure she has blocked so much of that out because of how painful it is. And of course, Kevin is back. And he's saying he's had no communication with anyone in his family for over a year. But wouldn't you know, whose name pops up on his phone? Ruby. Ruby's calling him. And he's still even got the little heart emoji next to her name. So of course he answers it. And he says he was so emotional, which of course, because I'm sure his first reaction was like, holy shit, I've done enough. Holy shit, Jody's going to let me have my family back. Like, you know, get that, right? And he says that she was in a panic and said that she had some explaining to do. She told him that the two younger children were demonically possessed. And he asks, how does she know this? She said that they confessed it and that one of the younger kids had gotten out and got to the police. And she says to him, quote, I can only imagine the lies he's telling the police right now. You need to go pick up our children from the police station. This is your chance to redeem yourself, end quote. First of all, fucking twat. Fucking twat. But this was the only, like, she knew she had to say that sentence because if she didn't, Kevin was just going to keep asking. But because she's like, you want to come home? You want me back? You want our family back? Go get our kids right now and fix this. So he goes.
Yeah. That whole Kevin's talking about this. And I'm like, I had to watch that part twice. Because in my mind, even as someone who grew up with like people who weaponize demons to control people. Because there are two types of demon possessions in church. There's the one where you're so weak that the devil just walked in real easy and like was like, poop, I put one of my bad guys in you and you're demon possessed and you're going to cause chaos. And then there's the other one, which is that you're doing God's work. And so the devil's got to really attack you. So he puts his strong ones on you. I just sat there and was like, even in my belief, in my like darkest of days of church, when I was like so bought into all of it, if someone had called me and told me that like if I had children or a younger sibling or someone I cared about was demonically possessed and at the police station, I'd be like, well, why are they at the police station? That's not even like a fucking thing to him. He's just like, well, I got to go get my kids. And it's like 4 hours. It's like a 4-hour trip for him. So he's like, I'm going to get on the road and drive 4 hours to go get my kids because Ruby says, if I do this, there's a possibility, not you can come home. It's a possibility he could come home and be part of this family. And I'm like, dude, you need to fucking reality check. Like, you know, it's so funny because the slang like simp like is the perfect definition of what Kevin is to her. They're not this like, I bought my wife flowers because I love her, but like, I'm willing to put my kid's life in danger because I think my wife is more important, is more of that definition, in my opinion.
Yeah, all I could think of was like, my God, the fucking blind loyalty and tunnel vision of this man. It's just wild to me. So our next timestamp is 2:28 p.m. So at this point, the only place they hadn't been able to get into still was that room with the safe door. And one of the like chiefs, whatever the fuck, one of the people there, one of the guys in charge said, he was like, fuck this. Like, we have been doing this all fucking morning. Like, fuck this. I'm just going to try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And wouldn't you know, he got in, which knowing Jody and Ruby, I'm not surprised they just left it as the default like that.
Yeah. And also the fact that Jody was like, I don't know the passcode.
Well, of course not. She's going to play stupid. So they go in, they found rope and handcuffs in the bottom drawer of like a cabinet thing. They also found gauze and a mix of cayenne pepper and honey paste, which they had been using to put on the wounds of the boy. And they also found duct tape. They still, at this point, because, you know, we know Ruby has 6 children, there's still 2 daughters unaccounted for. At that point, other agencies in the state were out looking for them. Authorities went to Ruby's home and searched it, and no one was there. But they did find the 2 middle girls at a friend of Ruby's house who lived nearby. And physically, these girls were fine, thank goodness. But at this point, no one can find Ruby still. Well, flash forward to 5:24 p.m. While authorities were searching the house, Ruby just pulls up. And we see this really weird footage of her just like laying on the couch. And like Detective Bate, I think that's who it was, had came in and was like looking at her like, what the fuck? And she's like, hey, how are you? And like pops up like a fucking weirdo. Like, okay, Ruby, like this is not the time for pleasantries. Like, what the fuck? So they arrest her and take her in. She asks no questions. She's just got this blank stare going. Well, because Kevin had that long drive around this time, he shows up at the police station and he says he's there to pick up his kids. And the cops are obviously like, we're not just going to hand these children over to you. What the fuck? And so they're like, oh, we need to talk to you before we can give your kids to you. And they learn when they sit down with him that, you know, he's been no contact for over a year and that he's not having any direct involvement with this. He says that he was suspicious and terrified of the police, and he thought that they wanted to tear his family apart. And so when they're asking him about how did he know to come here since he's had no contact, he tells them that he just received a message to come get the kids, but that he preferred not to go into who notified him or any extra details because at this point, he didn't want to put any blame or direct them to Ruby, that he fully admits he was trying to protect her in this moment, which given the mindset he's had with Ruby and all of this, you know, is not shocking. And so they're like, well, okay, in that case, we're going to go ahead and tell you like what the fuck is going on right now. And so they tell him about the 911 call and the condition his son is in. And he's just in complete shock, complete denial. He is fully genuinely in a like, what the fuck kind of reaction to this. And he says he couldn't comprehend what they were telling him. And he thought that they were just lying to him to try to goad him into saying something else. And they offered to show him the pictures and things like that, but he refused because he's like, no, that's just more manipulation. And he talks about how he's trying to work to get back to his family every day and how he feels like that the police is making this up. Obviously, they're not. And he says that he was lost and just didn't know what to do, that he just wanted his family back and all of that. And Detective Bates says she was just hearing basically he supports Jody and Ruby and that he wanted his kids back. So she says, obviously, he isn't directly involved in what's happened to these children and that basically him not being present, he wasn't a suspect. So no arrest for him, of course.
It was really hard to watch his interview because It was like watching someone learn to breathe. I don't even know how to else explain it, because it was like they would say something to him and it was like he had a default. Like his default was Ruby and Jody wouldn't hurt my kids. And he even says to them, like, I don't know that you're not lying to me. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like they say, like, your son was emaciated. And he was like, what does emaciated mean? Like his brain wasn't functioning.
No, he was so shocked.
Yeah.
Well, that too. Yeah.
Yeah. He was so delusional and like wrapped up in this innocence of Ruby. Like he probably spent 4 hours convincing himself that the police were trying to railroad Jody and Ruby, and that he had to stay. We don't know, like, we know what he shared about that phone call, but we don't know what else Ruby has said on that phone call. It could be that she said that the police are out to get her. She could have given him so much more that we don't know because he doesn't want to share. And I think that like bait of like, if you do this, there's a possibility to get your family back. So you have to do everything you can to get our kids back. Go get them. So it's like he had one directive, which was to go to that police station and put his kids in the car and leave. His kids were not at that police station, first and foremost. Like they were in the hospital. I was like, what the fuck? Like, how do you think your kids are sitting around a police station?
Well, that's because, you know, he takes everything that Ruby was saying to him as like the full truth. So she's not going to mention anything like that.
Also, Jody, like, well, not Jody, but like also Jody and Ruby, like, what do you do when he shows up and the kids aren't there?
I don't think they were thinking that far ahead. Now it's 7:27 p.m. and Detective Bate is with Ruby in the interrogation room. And she... I'm laughing, but like, it's not funny. But it's like, she's like, this was the most awkward interview of my entire life. And yeah, because literally Ruby is stone face. She's got this blank stare. She's doing these creepy slow blinks, which to me, I'm like, oh, she's intentionally trying to make herself look not in her right mind because she knows she's fucked. Got it.
I also thought she was trying to intimidate her. Like, I'm just going to blink at you.
Oh,
like,
yeah, because that's what, because Detective Bate is even like, I can sit here all day. I don't got nowhere to be but right here. So take as long as you need. And then that's when finally Ruby breaks and she's like, I'll wait till I have a lawyer. And then, you know, because she said that, they can't continue on with her. So they're like, okay. So then they move over to Jody, and this is 7:55. So they spend almost 30 minutes with Ruby's bullshit. And of course, this is what Jody says. So she says, quote, so I trust my attorney. He said, don't say anything. And I said, I have nothing to hide. And he's like, I know that, but just let me be there with you when you talk. So she shrugs and she says, you guys seem like nice people. I'd like to just tell you, but I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're going to flip my words. I don't know. And Detective Bates says, and that's the good thing about the cameras, the audio, everything. She says, quote, it's pretty much double recorded audio and video, end quote. She reassures Jody, this is for both sides of our safety, of course, and says that, you know, they're not interested in flipping her words. They just want to know what happened. They want to know the truth. And Jody responds, quote, I'm a psychologist. I've watched people flip things all the time. So I get it. And then she kind of like scoffs. And then she says, I sit on your side and I get it. I wish people didn't do that, but they do, end quote. And they all can see through her. She is as transparent as a window because Detective Bate is just like, yeah, we knew what she was doing. She's trying to be like, oh, I'm on your side. I'm one of you guys. Like, I get it. Da 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 da. I wish I could help you out, but golly gee, I can't. But it ain't working.
Also, you're not a psychologist. And in many states, it's a misdemeanor to represent yourself in a profession that you are not. In the state of California, it is a misdemeanor to call yourself a doctor if you are not a physician or a surgeon.
Fun fact of the day, guys. Well, Ruby and Jody are each charged with 6 counts of child abuse. So then we flash to the next day, and Chad talks about how he was completely isolated the past year, and he was actually at work. He was working as a lifeguard, and his boss comes up to him and says to him it was all over the news and that they were so sorry and they were there for him if he needed anything, and just left it super vague because obviously the boss assumed that Chad knew. But spoilers, Chad had no fucking clue what he was talking about. And he's like, what the fuck? Okay. And then so he says on his lunch break, he goes and he Googles it and looks it up. And of course, there's a slew of articles, YouTube videos, like all the things, right? Because it's Ruby Franke. And he says that his reaction was, this is not real. And he says he really believed it. And we get it because at that point, he's still drinking their Kool-Aid, right? And he's just reiterating that he just loved Ruby and Jody even so much and trusted them. And he's like, there's no way there's any validity to this. They had to have been set up. There's something going on. And he said that at that point, he truly believed that Ruby and Jody were God's chosen people. He really thought that, because keep in mind, this is like just a couple years after COVID happened. He thought this was the end of days time frame, and that he's like, it's going to work out. And I'm like, oh my God. And it's not even just him. I know it's just the imagery of like church stuff. He's like, I just was confident that that jail would crumble and then they would stand on their own and be free and stand with God and all this stuff. And I'm just like, this is so terrifying to me, like so bad.
That's the kind of shit that they say from pulpits. Like, there's a reason he thinks this. There's a reason. That's literally the story of Paul in the Bible. And I mean, granted, Paul didn't walk out because he was a good person and didn't run away like all the other prisoners did. But like Paul was like, I'm going to stay here because that's what lawful citizens do. Sorry, there's no too much random shit from the Bible. I think that he was so brainwashed. He's 18 and he's been on his own since he was 17, which is like heartbreaking because it's like, so he's been in no contact with Kevin as well. Like I thought they left together, but they didn't leave together. And that's what's heartbreaking is that a 17-year-old boy was made to go out into the world and be an adult while he could have lived at home or lived with his dad. So heartbreaking.
It is. Detective Bate talks about them talking with the younger children and that the boy, the 12-year-old, was so forthcoming and was literally open with them and telling them all of these horrible things he went through, which was a slew of things, including being forced to stand in the sun all day long, being tied down to weights, that, like I mentioned earlier, they would make him jump on the trampoline all day long in the desert sun. And he also told them about going out to this place called Hellhole Road, which is also in the middle of the desert, and they were forced to run. And in their second search, they found all kinds of items to confirm all of these accounts. And on top of that, in the room he was staying in with Ruby, they found these blue folders, one for each kid. And in these folders, she put like journal pages in there, basically. She documented and outlined every single thing, word for word, super detailed timeline, everything. And it was so creepy when I did my first watch through on this episode because they show an excerpt from July 10th and it was literally July 10th. Ew, I was so creeped out.
Tara texted me. She's like, oh my God, that's her diary and it's July 10th. And I was like, oh God, no, today. It's the date. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Just so horrific. And one of the things she put in there, because they show all kinds of quotes. I didn't write all of them down, but one I did write down was, quote, I told the boy he emulates a snake. If he wants to emulate the savior, he has to be obedient. And another one was, the body must engage in good work. And she mentions throughout this multiple times that these children are demons and recollects when they've had blood on their face, all kinds of injuries. Like she's writing every single thing down and just so many awful, diluted, graphic things. And she says in this kind of makeshift journal that she genuinely believes her children were possessed. And in the LDS religion, there's a thought of no unclean thing can be let into heaven. So this is how it's explained, I think, by Kevin.
Brandon.
Oh, Brandon. You're right. This was explained by Brandon, that mental health professional that was shadowing Jody. Yes, that guy says that her anxiety about this led to her abusing her children, and she thought she was doing the right thing. Not that that excuses it, but that's literally the train of thought for anyone who's not familiar.
Oh, and yeah. I mean, think about like all the exorcisms that we hear about children who are like abused because of that. Going to hell is a huge fear for a lot of people raised in church. So
there's also a passage about using a cactus poker to make that child go into the sun and how he didn't react. And that was just so fucking heartbreaking and evil and awful to listen about and try to like conceptualize. And she said that she will fight his demons until the day he dies. And
which means she doesn't care if he dies because she's prioritized the demon over her child's well-being.
They say it in the documentary, but it is so true. That child having the courage to escape 1,000% saved him and his sister's lives. 1,000%. Ruby and Jody would have killed them.
100%. We're not even talking like months away. We're probably talking weeks away from this.
At most.
Yeah. And I think that young man I mean, that's a hard thing to do at 12, to like break out. Like, he was being stored in a room with a safe. That's where he was tied up, in that room. And he escaped and walked out of that house. And I'm sure Jody realized he was missing, because it probably was something like changing his dressings. I don't know the details of it, but like, he probably took an opportunity and ran, because he wasn't in shoes. He was in socks. Like, he ran for his life, and also was extremely polite when he walked up to someone's house, because he could have been frantic, and he walked up very politely. And one of the things is, like, in the video, when he walks up, he goes, "Can I ask for 2 favors?" And he goes, "Well, just the one is important." Like, he basically was like, "Just the one, actually," which was, "Can you take me to the police station?" And they were like, "Oh, we'll call." And then there was like, they gave him food because he was hungry.
Yeah. Right. Gosh. With all of this, Chad tried to call Jody and Ruby, but of course, no response, because, they're detained at this time. So he decided to message his dad, and Kevin does respond to him and tells him that he's about to go by the house and check on things, and that Chad was welcome to meet him there. He says that when he got there, he didn't even recognize Kevin, that he was literally like, "Who is that? Who's this scrawny, skinny guy?" Because, as we saw in the footage, like, Kevin worked out. Kevin was a buff dude. And now, because I'm sure he's been depressed during all this, like, he's just kind of whittled down himself. It's kind of like the same thing, because Kevin just says Chad looks so much older. And then Chad asked Kevin about like what was going on. So at that point, Kevin told him about the children being under the influence of evil spirits and all of that, and that this was the right thing to do, blah, blah, blah. And Chad is like, "Oh my fucking God, my dad is also brainwashed." Great. They walk into the home or whatever, and it's just a mess. Like, there's tons of bins, there's tons of buckets, like all the drawers were empty, and everything was very opposite, because as we learned in like episode 1, maybe 2, they kept the house like a set. It was very clean. It was never like this. This was huge alarm bells, right? So one of the neighbors, his name is Matt, he noticed he was there. And so they go over there and they see Kevin sitting with his head in his hands, and he's sobbing, and he's like apologizing for the mess and all of this. And he's like, "Oh, no worries. You knew they were moving, right? That's why this place looks like this." And Kevin's like, "What? What do you mean they're moving? This is their home. Like, what are you talking about?" And so then they're like, "Oh shit, Kevin really knows fucking nothing." So then they sit down, and he says that they end up talking with Kevin for like 6 hours, and they're just like talking about everything. And something finally snaps in Kevin. He finally starts asking questions for the first time during all of this. And he's like, of course, crying and angry, and just said he felt like he was going crazy because none of this made sense. And he said this is when he realized that everything was a lie. And yeah, he was being brainwashed by Jody and Ruby. And it's just like, it started finally clicking for him. And he, he's waking up. And so he tells Chad about all this and says, the kids aren't possessed. Ruby was lying, all of this. And of course, Chad, he's like, "Oh my God," like, yeah, obviously. And he realizes in this moment he can't defend his mom anymore. And they were both just kind of in this weird acceptance phase, like seeing what's really going on and what's actually the truth. Because until this point, both of them had such a blind loyalty for Ruby and Jody.
Oh, for sure. And I think what ends up being is the fact that it's the fact that Ruby was going to move and hadn't told him. So the illusion that he was just separated to work on himself to come back to be a good father, that's where it snapped and cracked, because it was, she's leaving me. Because he talks about earlier in the episode, his biggest fear was that Ruby was going to divorce him. And this was her way of doing it without doing that. It was to move away. They were probably moving to Jody's. I mean, that's where I assume they were going. Yeah. And I have a feeling that they would have moved all their shit, and he would have gotten a text message from Ruby saying, "We've moved, you can have the house."
Oh, that's 100% how that would have played out, for sure. And the interviewer asks if Kevin feels guilty, and he says, "Absolutely. I was the last line of defense for these children, and I packed my bags and walked away." And you know what? I don't care how mean this sounds. I'm fucking glad he feels guilty. I'm glad he has that guilt, and I hope that stays with him the rest of his life. And I truly hope that this changed him in a way that he could value his children, because there's so much damage to all of his children that's been done that will never be undone. So I hope for their sake, he's genuine with this, and that he can be the dad that they need and help them heal, or try to heal, because this is so much. It's so much. Oh my God, I'm about to cry. I'm not going to cry. It's fine. Okay. So we flash forward to 4 months later, and we get court footage, and Kevin, Chad, and Sherry kind of all talk about this. Kevin says that he couldn't even look at her. Chad says that he was looking at her and stuff, but it was just so heartbreaking, not only because of the situation, but to see her like that and to see her in this position, you know, and you can understand that for sure. Cause like at the end of the day, it's still his mom. And, you know, he talks about at the very end of the episode, like he still has love for her as like a mom figure, doesn't love her as a person, but like, you know, that. And Sherry said she intentionally didn't look at Ruby before she went in there. She let everyone know, like, I'm not even going to look at her. I'm not going to acknowledge her. Fuck her. She says she doesn't believe that Ruby was sorry at all. Because of course, you know, when they're on fucking trial, they're all going to be like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm such a bad mom. Wham, blah, blah, blah. Both Ruby and Jody plead guilty to 4 counts of aggravated child abuse. And they will serve up to 30 years in prison. And then we go back to a clip of the very first 8 passengers video, which again is the gender reveal cake situation of the last baby. And it's just so stark and so terrifying to see not only the difference in the family dynamic, of course, because I watched this twice. You guys know we always watch these twice when we're recapping to catch everything. I focused on Ruby and like her face and her energy and her aura and like everything. And it's so scary that you see this mom who's like so happy and loves her children and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then we have this evil person now, like just seeing them, it's just like, it's night and day. It's crazy. Obviously, that's the whole point of them showing this clip at the end, but it's just like, it really hits you fucking hard. It's just like, God damn. And Sherry says that she will never talk to Ruby again, no matter what. She says, we have one childhood and one mom, and this was mine. Chad is asked if he misses Ruby, and he says, oh, I'm sorry. They don't talk about love. They talk about missing. Chad says he misses the mother figure and who she was when he was young, but she deserves what she is going through. And he doesn't think that she should get out until all of the little kids are all 18, at least. And I agree too. I think for their safety, doesn't matter if Kevin's the one that's got custody or not. Like, who's to say Kevin wouldn't fall for Ruby's bullshit again of her being like coming out of prison, being like, I saw my ways. I woke up. I'm not crazy. Like, you know, whatever the case is, like, totally get it. So I agree. I think they should serve their full sentence, but at the very least, it should be till those children are 18. But he does say that doesn't mean he doesn't have love for her. He just, you know, I can't even imagine how complicated that is. And Kevin is asked if he still loves her, and he doesn't hesitate. He says definitely that he always loved Ruby. And when asked by the interviewer, even though she abused the kids, and he says, oh yeah, the actions that she did were atrocious, but I still feel a longing. I miss her. And then he goes on to talk about all of the memories and stuff. And in my opinion, it's not that he can forgive her. I could be totally wrong. I don't think it's that he's ignoring what's going on and everything. I think the person he loves and the person he misses is who he thought his wife was and who she
100%.
Was before YouTube and all of that. And it's those rose-colored glasses just to the highest fucking degree. And as much as I don't like Kevin, it's like you can understand that because that's just such a mindfuck of a thing. And I agree with Sherry. And I think that Ruby was evil all along and that Jody did just kind of like elevate that and enable that. And it grew and it became what it was. Kevin admits that he can't turn off those good memories. So honestly, it's really fucking sad. It really is. As much as I don't like him, it's still really fucking sad for him too. It's just the whole situation is just so sad because it's like, because Ruby was such a monster and such a piece of shit, she has destroyed the lives of her family, her children. Like no one is ever going to be the same again, whether they had dealt with abuse or not. The older kids, they're never going to be the same again because even though they're not being like beat or whatever, they still have so much trauma that they have had to deal with because of what a selfish fucking monster she is. And they ask Kevin how he makes sense of all of this. And I'm like, what drugs are you on? But like, he had a very rehearsed thing he said, and I wrote it down. He said, this is a story of love, of hope, of family, but this is also a story of deception, of control, and ultimately, it's a story of faith. If you put your faith in the wrong hands, you can lose everything. And that last sentence hits so fucking hard because it is so true.
I think that was directed at Jody, not Ruby.
Oh, yeah, because let's be real. Obviously, Sherry is like, no, my mom was, or no, Ruby was evil all along, but like Jody like emphasized that. But I
Gave
think,
her permission to be.
yes, I think at this point, Kevin was still trying to like justify that Ruby was maybe a sliver of a good person, that it's all Jody's fault. It's all Jody's influence. My wife just got wrapped up in Jody, like, you know, Jody. But at the end of the day, no, it's not. So our credits start rolling and we just get our quick little like last little update that they put at the very end. And Chad has now built his own following as a social media influencer. Sherry is campaigning against family vlogging. And as we all know, in current time, Kevin has divorced Ruby. And lastly, of course, Ruby and Jody chose not to comment on all of the allegations from this documentary. And that is the end of the series. Final thoughts, Jessica.
Okay, final thoughts on the chaotic Ruby Franke. I think we see this a lot. I know this is going to be like a weird statement because we're talking about child abuse, but we see this a lot when like serial killer pairs pair up, when you get two people that give each other permission to be the worst of themselves and validate it through something. Now, obviously, this has a lot. Like, this was a lot for me because this is like religious trauma. And the fact that this is all disguised as preventing someone from going to hell. This has happened for centuries. This is not a new type story. This is a very public story. I think it's new in the aspect that these were like mainstream influencers. If you were in the family vlog sphere, if you were in like even just on YouTube, you knew who the Frankies were. They were this big group, and then they started getting negative notoriety to it. When Chad got his room taken away and people were like basically canceling them. This happens a lot in church. And unfortunately, these children will spend the rest of their lives in therapy because there's something that happens with religious trauma that's even harder because there's guilt involved. I know this because it's why one of the reasons I'm mainly in therapy is because when you do something against your family or you do something against your religion that you were like ingrained into you, there is a sense of guilt when you kind of question it. And so these kids are going to have to like question, did my faith do this to my mother? Did the devil do this to my mother? Like, that's going to be an easy thing. Like, Ruby could easily still manipulate these children and get them back because they could believe that she was demon possessed, that like Jody was, they thought Jody was demon possessed. There's so many things that could happen. And Kevin is not a safe person when it comes to Ruby because Ruby manipulates him more than anyone else. All she has to do is bat her eyelashes. Like, I know that he's divorced and that might be just to like, protect him and his assets and whatnot. But like Ruby getting out would be interesting for Kevin because I don't think he'll stay away from her. I think eventually there'll be a letter or there'll be a phone call that will bring him back to her because he, like you said, he says definitely he still loves her. And he's not willing to give up those rose-colored glasses. He's not willing to see her as the monster. Like, he's still, like, the way he talks is that it's all Jody's fault. That Jody made Ruby do these things. And I was actually really surprised he never actually said that out loud. But that's what he's hinting at, is that Ruby was influenced by Jody. And I love that Sherry is standing up for her family and being like, no, because before Ruby met Jody, Sherry told us that Ruby beat Chad, that he would have like bloody noses. Ruby would beat him. And now you have two sociopaths together thinking that it's okay to chain a 12-year-old to a bed. That means this kid is defecating on himself and he's, malnourished. And so whatever he has, like, he's probably not being fed for days and days at a time, all to like cure or to relieve him of this demon. And it's just so fucking troubling. And I hope that we've normalized that's not a thing, that children aren't possessed, because also, this is what I don't understand. Children, in the way the Bible talks about children, is that children are innocent. Jesus even says that, like, children come to me because you're innocent. So how can children be demon possessed? I think Jody, through her possession and everything, she set up this perfect thing that I don't know what it was about her, but it just felt like she needed to abuse children. That's what it felt like to me. And there was no way they could be found not guilty, because Ruby journaled it. They were folders for each child sitting on her nightstand. Like if you looked at my nightstand, there's a book on it. That's like how it is. Like, you know, she had these 2 like loose leaf papers in a folder, like where she's documented what she's done to the kid, how the child has reacted, how the demon is reacting, all this shit. I mean, a lot of people were like, I do remember a lot of people being like, well, she at least said that she was guilty. She had no fucking other choice to say that she was guilty because she at least got it down to a class 2 felony. She didn't get a first degree felony. She didn't get it because a first class felony because she cut a deal. Her and Jody took a plea deal. And I love that Sherry called out those crocodile tears with her because she's like, you know, saying sorry to her kids and things like that in her court appearance. And it's like, I love that Sherry was like, fuck this. We've seen this before, you know, and I hope those younger kids recognize that and recognize that Ruby would do it again because she would be purifying them. And I love that you brought it in this episode. You brought the correlation between them and the Daybells because look what happened to the Daybell children.
Yeah. Definitely. Those children would have ended up murdered for sure, whether it be due to wounds, due to some action of abuse, or even just from like starving to death. Who knows how much longer their little bodies could have went. And you pretty much like, I know I've sprinkled my opinions in through this, so I won't keep this too long. You've said everything perfectly. I just, my whole thing is that Jody and Ruby deserve to rot. They deserve to have every day be a living hell for them in prison. And my biggest hope is that the Franke children are able to get the help and the resources and the tools that they most definitely need. And I can never understand, and this is like not just because I'm a mom, I think it's just, you know, being a human being. I just can't understand and I can't comprehend how you can do this to your children, how you can hurt your children. It's just so vile. It's so disgusting. And yeah, I just hope they rot in hell. I hope Kevin stubs his toe every day because he's complicit, whether he did anything or not. Just saying.
Yeah,
that's putting it nicely. What I hope happens to him too. But like really, at the end of the day, fortunately, unfortunately, whatever you want to say, those children need Kevin. So I just hope that he also takes advantage of the therapeutic tools and whatnot, so he can be there for them. So yeah, that is my thoughts. So I will just leave that there cleanly. But that is going to go ahead and wrap us up for this week. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you have watched this, let us know your thoughts. If you have other documentaries of other influencers, because there still are some other ones, let us know about them. We'd love to check them out and whatnot. But yeah, that is all that I have for now. So we'll go ahead and sign off and we will see you next week. Bye, guys.
Toodles.